Hello and welcome to Sidequest. This is our weekly video game show here at Geekverse. I'm your host, Dylan and I have with me the mechanized Kirklin Patzer. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic here on a Monday, talking some side quest stuff with you. Got like some exciting Helldiver patch notes I'm excited to talk to you about.
Nice.
And it should just be a good time.
Yeah, this is a fun, I'd say more of a low-key sort of episode here of Sidequest where we're going to talk about the games we've been playing, Helldivers for you, and then I have a bunch of random stuff, so I'll share all of that. We're also going to be talking about Dune Awakening, just got a new trailer, so we're going to break that down along with some other info. MultiVersus got a little bit of news there as well. But before any of that, Kirkland, big announcement today. I'm very excited to talk about this finally. So some of our listeners know if you're listening to the originals, you're on Patreon. Of course, Kirkland, you know what I'm about to say. But for anyone else, for the last few years here, I have been deep in the weeds, learning the ways of game development. That is art and programming and la-di-da, all these other things that it takes to make a game. And specifically for the last 2.5 years, I've been working on one project, and I'm finally ready to announce it in a big way publicly. It is called Potion Problem. And it is up on Steam now. It's not out yet, but you can go on there and wishlist it and check it out, and all that. So it's very exciting. I've been very quiet on this, and I think the reason for that is because there's been many projects, creative things in my life that I've worked on and never see the light of day. And so I think I've gotten to a point where I don't want to announce things ever unless it's for sure gonna happen. And so I think that's kind of where I've been with this game, where I've been working on it. I've known it, it's in a pretty good spot for a long time now, but I didn't really want to make an announcement until I knew it was gonna happen. And yeah, I think it's pretty imminent at this point. I don't have a release date yet, still working on that. Of course, same thing, don't want to announce anything until I'm 100% set in stone of when I want to actually release it. But yeah, the game, once again, it's called Potion Problem. It's on Steam. It'll only be on Steam. I've built it only with mouse and keyboard controls, so no controllers or consoles you can look forward to on this one. Who knows, maybe in the future, but for now, that's what it is. And yeah, this is my biggest ask of everyone listening is just if you have a Steam account, go over to Steam and wishlist the game. It helps a lot. It boosts it up on the charts and searchability and all that. And then also keeps you posted when it gets updates or when the game comes out, when it goes on sale, all that kind of stuff. You get notified for it. So it helps me out tremendously. So I'd appreciate if anyone who's listening, go check it out. Unfortunately, I don't have a trailer ready right now, so you can just see some screenshots, but I've been posting some GIFs on social media. I've made a couple social media accounts for the game as well, so you can follow the development of it there if you want. You can see some, but hopefully I have a trailer ready in the next week or two where people can see more gameplay. But Kirkland, you've played the game, so enough about me and my biased opinions and whatnot. But yeah. What do you think about the game?
No, I absolutely love it. I think it's so wholesome and creative, and just it's a great relaxing time while you're playing. It's nothing too stressful that many games can be. It can be stressful at times if you're really trying to get those orders out. But no, I think you did a tremendous job. It's got some fantastic music in there. I love all of the the pixel art in it as well. I definitely think that you nailed it on your first attempt of game making. And what a venture. Obviously you've been working on this one for a long time now. You've already said, and to be at this point, it's on Steam officially. I was mentioning this to you off cast. I think it was last week. It's so crazy to me to see your name actually attached to it, and then you go on the Steam page and there it is, Potion Problem with the Rapatika attached to it. I think that's so outstanding, and you should be very, very proud of that one. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, Kirkland's, a very helpful play tester for me. He's played the game, played it a long, long time ago. But you have the newest version with you, which is pretty close to what the final game will be too with you right now. Working on
Honored.
that. So yeah, looking forward to hearing
First
more
time playtesting a game ever, and it's nice to know the developer.
Yeah, that helps. But yeah, so I guess since I don't have that trailer, it's called Potion Problem. It's a potion making game. It's a puzzly sort of game, which is where the problem in the title comes from there. It's one thing I'm proud of with it is I don't really think I've played a game quite like it before, and so it's because of that it's hard to describe because I can't just say like, oh, it's like Mario, but like the jump is different or something like that. But
Right.
I think the best way to think about it is kind of like a top down or like a first person view of you and your workstation, and you're just chopping up and cooking weirdo ingredients and making kind of crazy potions. And the potions you're submitting orders, or you can just drink the potions and get certain effects or buffs or things like that. And so yeah, you kind of progress through a campaign which kind of introduces you to all the mechanics and all the potions, and then once you've done that, there's all these bonus levels that are kind of more puzzles. Like you have to do really no specific interactions and whatnot, but it's kind of all about discovery and figuring out interactions and just having a fun time. And yeah, I think it is ideally more of like a wholesome kind of low-key sort of game going on. It's pretty simple. Like it's mostly like a single screen sort of thing, just with unlocking different things that get added on there. So in some ways, it's pretty simple. It's very different from what I originally envisioned for it, but I think a lot of that has stayed as well. So it's cool to have it out there, for it to be public, and to hear like, because to this point, the only people I've heard like feedback on it is like you and like friends and family. And so, I'm sure people have told me some, things that are negative thoughts on it, but for the most part, it's like pretty guarded. But now that it's out there and I've seen some random comments from people I don't know who they are, it's like interesting to see that stuff. It's a very different dynamic with it. So
No kidding. Must be a little scary.
It is, but I don't know. I think my expectations for myself here are like, this is my first big game. Like I had that one game jam thing, but this is like my first bigger thing. So expectations are where they are for it. But I'll share a lot more info as the weeks come through and whatnot, and the next few months. And when I have a trailer, I'll make sure to mention that. I'm going to shout it out at the start of every episode. Sorry, I'm going to be very annoying for the next few months as I try and promote the heck out of this thing. But yeah, once again, for today, if you could go over to Steam and wishlist the game, that is huge for me. And then if you want to go check out the social medias, right now I have a Twitter and an Instagram for it. You can search Potion Problem. You'll probably find it. If not, Rapatika Games, Rapatika Games, and hopefully you can find those two accounts and follow those and see more updates and all that. But yeah, if anyone has any questions about it too, send them my way. I'm happy to talk about it, answer them. I'll share a lot more. Like once the game's out, I'll probably do a longer episode. It might just be a solo thing, or maybe a review with you guys. If a review would be weird, but just talk about the game in a more open way and share what it's like to make it and all that kind of stuff. So once again, there it is. I think that's all I'll share for today. But yeah, it's just exciting to have it out there. Is kind of my last takeaway there. So. There you go. Moving on, I guess a couple other shout outs here. We're covering the Halo show on a weekly basis. You can check that out. And over the weekend, me, you, Travis, and Taylor, whose names have I not said? We're playing Outlast Trials, the latest Outlast game, which is finally out of early access. It's a fully released game now. We played that over the weekend. Next week's episode is going to be dedicated to Outlast. I hope we can all get all four of us here and we can do a big, long review. We're also going to play a lot more because we only played for maybe a couple hours, but we all had a lot of fun with that. So that's what next week's episode is going to be. The week after that will be Princess Peach Showtime with Kirklin, you again.
Yeah.
You're going to be joining me many weeks here in a row on Sidequest, talking about that one as well. There's a demo for that out now I saw, so I will check out the demo. So I'll at least have my hand on the sticks a little bit to see what it feels like, but you will have more of the kind of full perspective of it there. So yeah, that's what the next couple weeks of Sidequest is going to look like. And yeah, let's get right into it. So our first thing for today is Dune Awakening. For anyone who kind of forgets what this game is, I think it was announced last year, maybe even the year before. This is not Dune Spice Wars. This is a different game. This is a MMO that until this point, I believe, until the last couple of weeks here, we'd only really had a teaser trailer. So I think we saw it Summer Game Fest, and we didn't really know much about it. From the trailer, you couldn't really tell it's an MMO because it's just like cinematic pretty much. But then they confirmed afterward that it is an MMO. So because of that, I think me and Travis and Taylor, maybe who had talked about that original announcement, were like, okay, not quite as excited for the MMO part of it. But there is still elements that I could be intrigued by. And so we got a bigger trailer here that shows off some more gameplay. And then there was also, like, a lot of people played a beta. There's like a public beta to some extent I think you'd be able to get into. And so there's been a lot more info about this game out now. And so I wanted to kind of talk about it here. But you hadn't seen or heard about this game previously. So this is kind of a whole new game for you as of today.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think of it so far, even kind of including that MMO part of it?
Yeah, no, I feel like now that I've seen it. I do remember at least hearing about that name in the past, but this is the first time I'd seen anything about it, and I was very impressed by the trailer overall. I was really getting into it. Of course, like I'm still riding that high from Dune 2. I'm looking forward to going to see that again in these next few weeks, and so I'm just like in the peak Dune-ness of it all. So seeing this trailer, I was extremely hyped. Until right at the end, and it said it said MMO. I don't want to say like I could never like an MMO, but I just feel like I have played my fair share of them in the past, and it's just not really the genre for me. Especially just where I'm at in my busy life, and like just I barely have time to like cut time out for like certain games that I love to play, let alone a genre that I'm not necessarily a fan of, even though I am a big Dune fan. I think this trailer shows a lot of really cool things in it that like if you are a fan of MMO, I think this is super exciting to see. There was certain gameplay elements to it that I just thinking about what was shown and how I've experienced certain MMOs in the past, it was kind of surprising just how that would unfold with like however many people would be on a server and how many randoms there could be just running around, like certain exploration aspects to it. It seemed like a No Man's Sky thing, but then I'm just picturing like it's tough for me to kind of picture what the world would look like with just like hundreds of people running around Arrakis or what might be going on there. So a little bit intrigued how that would go, but I think this is a really cool idea. Unfortunately, just not quite for me. I don't think because of the MMO tag to it. But like who knows? Like maybe I'm giving it too hard of a time right now without even seeing too much how those MMO elements do play out. But I don't know. I'm not really getting my hopes up or looking to pre-order this right now. Just with what was shown as well as what the like the MMO genre tag is attached to. So.
Yeah, when it comes to MMOs, like I played a few back in the day when I was younger, like more when I was in high school, just because I think I had a lot more like free time to play those kinds of games. But there's always a few things that are holdups. One could be just like how the game is monetized, right? Like something like World of Warcraft, I think there's probably some free way to play it these days, but I don't know. I still think about like a monthly subscription, and it's like that's quite a lot. Like I like with Marvel Snap where they have the monthly season, and if I'm like really into that season, I'll buy in for like 10, 12, whatever dollars it is.
Yeah.
But like this season, for example, I was like, I don't really care about this content, so I'm just gonna skip this season, and I can still play the game all I want. I'm just not getting this bonus stuff. Whereas I think with the MMOs, it's like you're really incentivized to be in there. You don't want to miss content and all this stuff. And so I don't know. I guess that's maybe one of my big questions would be for this game. Like, is this a free to play game with all sorts of microtransactions and you're buying either progress or just like customizations for your character? If that's the case, like I would definitely jump in and check this game out and play for a few hours. And if I love it, maybe I'll stick around. And maybe if I love it so much, maybe I would even invest some money and really get into the world of Arrakis here and become one of these Fremen out in the dunes, like making my clans and factions and whatnot. So yeah, that's always a part of it. But then also, MMOs, I think often, even from my experience playing them back in the day, was like, yeah, the gameplay not necessarily the most engaging, like on a person-to-person basis. It's more like when you get a bunch of people around and you're all kind of strategizing. That's maybe the more interesting part. And then they can be just very grindy. And these days in particular, I hate grindy games. I'm not into that. I like combat. Like my favorite combat ever in a third-person action game was like Ghost of Tsushima, where I could put on the highest difficulty and I kill enemies in 2 hits. Like that's ideal for me. That is so much better than just hacking at someone a million times. Even though I'm a huge Bethesda game fan, which is like the complete opposite of that ethos of gameplay there. So those would be some of my concerns. But it's weird when I watch this trailer in particular. I just see like a co-op crafting kind of game. Like that's what it looks like to me. It looks like. I don't know, like a Minecraft or a Valheim or whatever, any of the Forest, any of those kinds of games. It looks more like that than it does an MMO. So I'm curious how much that line will be blurred, and if it is maybe a cheaper, like if this is like a $30 game, or if it's a monthly basis thing, I don't think I'll buy into it at all to even check it out. But if not, I'd love to jump in, and hopefully with you and Travis and Taylor, like that would be really fun if we could all jump in there. And if it was really just that kind of co-op crafting experience, and we could have that within this greater MMO, we could just avoid maybe a lot of the elements we don't really care about, more just we want to jump around the planet of Arrakis. Like that seems pretty cool, and if it allows for that kind of thing, I'd be down. So I wonder where on that spectrum from like co-op game you play with your friends to MMO it truly is, because obviously there's always a line in between games, and how many people they have one shot in this trailer that's like your characters are looking out and there's like a huge battle unfolding with a bunch of vehicles and stuff, and like I find it hard to believe that that would necessarily be what the game actually looks like on a minute-to-minute basis. But like, I don't know, how big are these worlds? How many players are like in a server at a given time? Could I just load into a server, like a smaller one with some friends and go mess around and not worry about other players? If so, then like it could be a game for me. So definitely, obviously hot off the presses of Dune Part 2. I think it was a good time for them to do some trailers for this game. More info out
for
there.
sure.
But yeah, like I'm at an all-time like hype level high for this, and I want more of this. And I really like Spice Wars. I still want to go back and play more of that actually. But this seems like it could hit pretty well. So I don't know. I don't think it has a release date yet, but maybe later this year is what it's kind of speculated, especially if it's doing open betas right now with people jumping in and checking it out. So yeah, definitely a game I'm going to keep on the radar here. Let's talk about some of the info that's been coming out about this. So they've talked about how there's kind of like, and I pulled a lot of this from Rock Paper Shotgun Show, so their article there is really, really good, breaks it all down. There's kind of 5 pillars to this game, one of them being survival. So that makes a lot of sense, and there's like the water discipline, surviving sandstorms is like what they're talking about here. I think that part of it is really engaging. Like obviously the world of Dune is like set up perfectly for a survival game. So once again, where on that spectrum from MMO to co-op survival game is this? Like that part of it just kind of writes itself. Like the water preservation element seems like really interesting, like harvesting from enemies that you take out, or just like that is such a scarce resource. Like the value of that, especially in an MMO, potentially like that value kind of changing depending on players and availability and whatnot. Like that part of it seems really cool, and like I don't know, kind of like a slam dunk. Like you can't really mess that up unless the systems kind of suck. But that just seems like it writes itself in terms of game design. Another part is the politics and the intrigues. That would be like factions, joining factions, fighting between factions. So that makes a lot of sense in the MMO side of it. Of course, all these games not always, but usually have like some sort of NPCs or quest givers and that kind of thing to that factor into the faction. So once again, curious how that would work in terms of, I don't know, is there like really these created characters that you're getting invested in playing in the world, or is it more just like the players are engaging with each other in the way that like Fallout 76 was like no NPCs, it's all player to player, and then they're like they backpedaled and added NPCs later because you kind of need to have an engaging world outside of just players. You can jump in whenever you want on these things. I'm just gonna.
I was gonna say for the NPCs, but like on the trailer there, I was expecting to see some sort of like character. I don't know if I was expecting to see Paul or like another big character.
Yeah.
At the end, when the one guy was like crawling, and then you have like what looks to be the protagonist or the player character kind of reach out his hand. At first, you don't see him, and he's just holding a dagger. I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna be more deep. But no, it was just that character. So it kind of maybe set my expectations in the sense that you probably won't be seeing a lot of those main guys that you would expect.
Yeah,
I do expect to see some NPCs. I feel like you gotta have them in there, but not so much attached to the main movies and the story that's going on with Paul Atreides and those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Another thing is they've talked about infinite exploration. So one thing that seems interesting is that the world changes with every sandstorm. So this is like a certain points of interest might come or go, might not become available, or maybe they will unlock kind of later on. I think this makes sense from like an MMO perspective, like even something like Destiny 2, right? They have all these content releases, all this like new expansions and whatnot, and then they like put things in the vault. They put older things away. One, I think to make the game like manageable, so it's not like 500 gigabytes on your hard drive that it won't even fit on. So they put things away, which it kind of sucks, right? Especially if you're someone who like, if they want you to play this game 10 years late, I want to be able to go and play all the content that I missed, but that's not always realistic, I guess. I don't know why exactly they make those decisions. Probably once again so that you want to jump in now, so you don't wait because you're going to miss out on this content. So there's obviously a negative side of that, but I also think from the lore perspective, I think that's really cool, and the idea of like certain things opening up or becoming available, or maybe even just changing, like a certain level area that you might be used to maybe just is different because now half of it's covered in sand and it changes with the way you have to engage or access it. So like that part of it seems really cool, and I think it's just it's great that the world of Dune has this natural lore element to it that makes for the developers to be able to implement these changes to the world in that kind of MMO live service content sort of way. So I think it's cool that it makes sense within their world, and hopefully it's just not something that they take away content too often or build up too much of that FOMO energy, because I really don't like that. Like that actively turns me away from a game like Destiny. I don't like that. I think if I go to it now, I'm playing like, I don't know, some random version of it, but like this stuff that maybe someone's favorite content is like no longer in the game. I don't like.
No, I completely agree. I like many got Destiny right at release and was loving it initially, and then you fall behind like a couple patches, and they had like their story attached to these like releases or like raids that were coming out. I'm like, I am so lost already. Like I was already kind of teetering out of this, but now I definitely know that I'm gonna let that pass. I don't need to be there for. And like World of Warcraft kind of has that too, right? Like anytime a big raid comes out or like a DLC or just however many games or I guess it's all the one game, but just different DLCs that have come out. It's like I would play those games for the story, and I feel like that is not really why you play an MMO. I've I've come to realize. So yeah, I agree that's definitely deterred me from things like that.
No, yeah, I mean the story, like it's just that meme of like the story is the friends you made along the way, and like the experience is the experiences you had. So it's like, I don't know. Hopefully you should keep a lot of that stuff in there so people can continue to have that. This trailer does a really good job of showing off the different types of vehicles that are available. So of course you have the ornithopters. I forget, is that how they're pronounced?
I never know.
The
There's
dragonfly ones.
the little dragonfly.
Yeah,
but
yeah. And then they showed some kind of like Mars rover looking things, all sorts of different vehicles on the ground. Then the different like flying ones as well. So that part of it looks really awesome. Like it seems like they have all the stuff you would want and expect there, and that stuff looks really fun to fly around and explore with. So that's really cool. And then the last kind of the 5 pillars here being expression and customization. So obviously that makes a lot of sense in terms of customizing your character, making who you want. I didn't really get from this trailer, and maybe if I freeze framed and looked really closely, I could see like, what are we talking about here? Like, are we talking like, can you make a Harkonnen in this game, or are you kind of more limited to Fremen or like Atreides, like House Atreides, those people coming into Dune? I'm not really sure what you can do there, but it would seem like that would be something you should really lean into, is the different factions, and even stuff outside of the 2 movies that we know, just bringing in all the other factions from that world would make a lot of sense. And then kind of with that customization would be like the base building, which was a huge part of this trailer, and they showed off a lot of that stuff. And honestly, it didn't look like anything too crazy necessarily, but I think once again, just like having that customization that you would expect from these co-op survival games, but dropped into the world of Dune seems really cool. And then once again, like harvesting water, I'm sure there's all sorts of different buildings and upgrades that you can get that help you with that kind of thing. So that makes a lot of sense as well. But it looks pretty cool. They showed like different, I guess, templates, different styles of customization you could do for your buildings. So yeah, once again, that stuff looks really cool. But I guess you'd kind of expect that. I guess MMOs don't normally have base building; they have the character customization part of it. So it's cool that they're leaning into that as well. It ties really well in with the survival mechanics once again, right?
Absolutely. I already mentioned that a few aspects of this trailer reminded me of No Man's Sky, and that was just like another one. I'm like, oh man, like this game is just No Man's Sky.
That just like destroys like minerals and whatnot.
Exactly, all that stuff. I was pretty surprised to just see how big that base got, like when they did the time lapse. Like I was expecting it to just be like a little house, but then it's this tower. They had a little helicopter pad for their dragonfly thing, and I was kind of surprised by that aspect, but like knowing now that it would be along those lines of building, crafting those things like with friends, I guess that is kind of on par with some of those games, because Fallout 76 had that, right? As well as like Valheim and Forest, all those titles. No Man's Sky, as I've already mentioned. So
yeah, I guess Fallout 76 would be the closest comparison, although that game's like the server size is really limited. Like I think it's 16, or it was at launch, and maybe they've increased it since then. But like compare that to an MMO where there's like hundreds of people potentially in like a given space. Like it's a way different kind of scale of things there. So yeah, once again, I don't know how the customization, like base building, would work, because in Fallout it kind of worked because you're so limited on how many people are in a server. But even then, I don't know what happens in Fallout 76 if 2 people have built a base in the same spot, because obviously server to server you go in, it like loads in your base. I could be a little wrong on this. I haven't played that game in a long time, since like 2017. But But yeah, I don't know how that would work if there's like overlapping stuff. So I don't know how that will work in this game as well. But I'm sure they got it figured out to some extent. One other mechanic that seemed really interesting is you gotta have spice. Spice has got to be in this game to some extent, and it seems like it's like essentially like a currency. You could sell it, or you can use it to like power up your character, like a skill tree kind of way. But then they also talked about there's like this mechanic of like getting addicted to spice, and if you use too much of it, like to upgrade your character rather than like selling it or using it to get resources or whatever, that you get like addicted to it. So I guess you need to like you got to keep that influx coming in, or you're going to, suffer withdrawals. So once again, a very Fallout type mechanic. And so I'm curious how punishing that system would be, and if that's kind of a way to keep everyone in a similar level range or power range, by making it so you don't want to use like too much of this to upgrade your character. Let's say you're level 100, but you don't want to invest all of those points that you would get into like upgrading your character, but invest it into like the local economy. I don't know how that's going to work, but it's a really interesting mechanic that I can't say I've really seen in a game quite to this scale.
Yeah.
Like obviously Fallout 76 gamified a lot of that stuff in a much different way than the single player games, but not a lot of games deal with like addiction as a mechanic in the first place.
Yeah.
So to do it in MMO is weird, but once again, with the lore connection of Dune, I think it's really cool.
No, I love when, it's pretty limited, but when games do tackle that, I just feel like it's really interesting and add a, like a pro and con thing that you can introduce in your character. Like you don't really have to deal with that, but it makes the world building just a little bit more interesting if you do have that around. Like on a recent, this probably would have been like a couple years ago now, but like on a recent like Skyrim playthrough, I had a mod that was like a skooma mod. So
Right.
like it was a similar thing where like you could
Nice.
have skooma and it like totally boosts you, but then you'd have like terrible like after effects unless you get like addicted to it, but then you have to
Yeah.
keep doing it, otherwise the withdrawals just totally kick in. So I really like, I think just that gameplay aspect of it is really fun, and yeah, to have that for spice is awesome. And spice is just such a necessity in the world of Dune that to implement it in that manner, I think that's really creative. And it makes it a valuable resource, which in Dune it's the most valuable resource. So I do like that.
Yeah, it could have a weird, and obviously I don't know how this works mechanically in the game, but just the idea of it being an MMO and a game that people are going to ideally stick with for months or years. It's like, I don't know, let's say I don't play for a month, but then I come back and like, what am I going to log into? My character is just like deprived, like they're on the ground, like they're sweating, they've like lost all their muscle mass. Like I hopefully it's just like as simple as taking some more and you're back up. But yeah, I feel like with a game that is constant, you're going to be playing all the time, but then naturally you're going to take breaks here or there. Hopefully you're not punished too hard if you come back after a big break like that. So we'll see how a mechanic like that works out. And then I think my last kind of thought here from this trailer is like, okay, this is MMO, this is an MMO, and it does have that stiffness of an MMO in terms of the character moving around. Obviously it's nice having the vehicles, but like that way the actual character walks around, it's a little stiff. And I think even graphically, it's not blowing my mind. So I don't know. That of course that could change by the final release of the game or something. But I think those are maybe a couple reservations that I have. But it's probably a good thing too. Like I'm keeping my expectations like very very low on this game. And if it is free or low cost, and I do jump in and really enjoy it, like that's just a huge win at that point. So I think I'm gonna continue to keep my expectations there. I don't know if many other trailers would change many of my perspectives there. Maybe it would just be like hearing other preview thoughts and people really praising the game, then maybe I'd get a little hyped, but I'm going to try and be wary of that because, I don't know, just once again, same as you, not really my genre, so just kind of keeping it at arm's length here. But anyway, that's Dune Awakening. Any other thoughts from the trailer that we didn't break out yet?
No, I think we covered everything that really tickled my fancy.
And then we will move on. So next up here, MultiVersus is officially coming back with its, I guess, full launch. In this video that I was watching, they still called that previous launch they had like a beta, which I guess I didn't even realize even though I was playing the game. But anyway, it's coming back May 28th. And it was kind of a weird announcement because to me, it was all talk, no show. And there was like this 3-minute video they had with the Tony there, who's like the game designer, the director, whatever his title is there. And they talked about all these things that they're gonna have in the game. And I guess like, okay, May 28th is still a couple months away, so they have time to roll out more trailers. But it just felt like a weird way to come back and not really have too much concrete stuff. And maybe I'm going to immediately discredit my point. Like what they talked about here was like, okay, they have like improved net code. They moved to Unreal Engine 5, so they're on like a new engine, which are things that surprised me. I thought they were gonna put the game on pause and like make a bunch of content and then come back, and that's what the main hype point would be.
Yeah.
But it seems like they really invest a lot of that time to like redo the infrastructure of the game, which I don't know. From my perspective, like, yeah, the game could look better, I suppose, but like I had no issues with the net code. It ran pretty well for me. Now I was like more of a casual, and maybe the hardcores were like complaining that its net code wasn't very good. But I think I had like rollback, and you can always improve that stuff. So I don't know. Any thoughts on MultiVersus? Do you think you'd come back and check this game out some more, or what would be the thing that would make you come back?
I think like certain roster additions would definitely appeal to me.
They said new characters are coming, but they didn't say who or what IP or anything. So it's kind of all speculation at this point.
I think it's the type of game that I definitely would just keep checking in on, like not necessarily jump into play and see what's been added, but like just keep an eye. Like if I do get that powerful Gandalf pick or you know, like the elusive.
Still hoping for the Lord of the Rings for sure.
Yeah, the elusive Lord
Harry
of the Rings characters or Harry Potter. I think that could be extremely hype and enough to jump in there, because like you're saying, like I did think that there was enough in there that would make me wanna maybe like not just discount it and like actually jump back in, especially if I have some like friends like here, like in person, to, you know, just play some versus, like on I was gonna say couch co-op, but it's not really that. Just local multiplayer, I guess. Yeah. I think that would be lots of fun, and I'm kind of surprised as to like what you're saying, just like what like maybe where their focus is on what to work on for the game right now, because I really didn't have issues with the actual gameplay of it. Maybe it was just like more so I could play this, or you know, play Smash instead. and it kept kind of going back to that, and but like it is a free game, right? So there's nothing really a big hurdle to jump into or a big fence to jump over to get into it. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't say I'd never jump into it again.
Yeah, you know, for me it'd be those characters once again, the ones we've always talked about there: Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Those would be the big ones that I want in there. That would get me hyped. You know, I think really my biggest problem with the game is that it just had like this free-to-play live service model to it. Like I desperately wish I could just pay $40 and just have the game, have all the characters. You can still have stuff that I unlock, costumes and whatnot, but I just want to be able to play all the characters. That's why I love platform fighters and the variety of it in Smash. I play every character because I like checking out all of them, at least a little bit. So that was like my biggest hurdle of why I just was losing steam with MultiVersus, because I have to grind just to unlock a new character. And then they had like their rotation, but then it's like, oh, but then now the character that I really enjoyed, Harley, who I thought I had locked, but I guess I hadn't. She was just in this rotation. Now I can't even play my favorite character anymore. It just became really annoying and grindy. So it doesn't seem like that's going to change. Like they're probably going to still have this live service model, which, you know, it makes sense. And that's just the way games are these days. But I guess for me, like the expectation of what a platform fighter is, I'm used to games like Smash Bros. And Rivals of Aether, which you buy the game, you get the roster, you're good, you're happy. And there's DLC for like additional characters for sure, but you at least get that base roster for free. So even if MultiVersus had that, where you pay whatever and then you get 12 characters, and then you have to pay extra or work within game credits to get the other ones, that would be fine. But it just, I think that was maybe my biggest holdup. So, but if those big characters are in there that I love and I have that nostalgia for, then I would definitely want to invest the time or even spend a little bit of money and get in there. Because I know I could buy into the Seasons Pass, and I think it probably improves the rate at which I'm getting characters. But that's not really the solution I personally wanted. It's like a platform fighter. I don't want to spend a monthly subscription for it. I just want to jump in whenever I want to, or whenever I have friends that want to play. That's kind of more my speed for it. So curious to see what characters they add. Hopefully they have a couple new ones at that launch, or else I do think it will fall flat. Like obviously there will be players there, people who loved the game and were sad that it even went offline in the first place. You'll get a lot of people there, but I think without a couple big characters at launch, I don't know how much it's really going to move the needle again. I think a lot of people have already moved on. So I don't know. Hopefully they can surprise me, because once again, expectations are very low on this for me in terms of coming back in a big bad way. So I think also that a lot of like the progress, whatever progress you made in that beta is going to carry over. So that's good, I'm assuming there. But if they don't, that would be a major blunder. So I have to assume that stuff's going to happen. So There you go. That's MultiVersus. How about we take our first break, and when we come back, we will talk about the games that we've been playing. Okay, we are back. So I have a lot of games here, so I'm going to talk about a couple, and then I'll let you go, and then I'll come back and talk about some more.
Sounds good.
So I don't lose my voice here, but just a couple updates. One is Dead Island 2. I talked to you about, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I said in that episode to you that, interesting, like this is all like melee combat game. There's no guns in it, that kind of thing. Like an hour more into the game after that, I unlocked guns for the first time. And so that was like a huge shock to me that like, man, what a bold play for a first-person game, a game that looks like a first-person shooter, to hide any guns in the game for like at least 5 or 6 hours of playtime in it. Like, really, really bold, interesting move. And I'm sure the trailers had guns, so I could have known that, but I just totally forgot about that. And like the melee combat was so good, and I had spent multiple hours with it that I just assumed I was never going to see any guns. And it even got to the point where like there's the story mission where you first get a gun. It's like that's what the story mission is. You're breaking into some guy's house because he was like a hunter and he has a bunch of guns. And through that whole time, I was like, that's interesting that they have a story beat about getting guns, even though you don't use them in this game. And then even beyond that, in that mission, you finally get a gun and you use it to mow down a bunch of enemies. You have like a height advantage. And I was like, wow, it's interesting. They had like this gun mechanic for this one level, but then they're going to like take it away from me. I'm going to be back to my melee combat. But then, like, they don't, obviously that's just like when you unlock guns and then you get a few more. So that was a huge surprise for me. So for anyone who's like, wanted some gun combat in there, like that's something that gets unlocked later on. And once again, maybe I'm just dumb for not realizing that was a thing that was going to unlock. I will say that the gun combat is not nearly as good as the melee combat, and the variety isn't quite there either. They just don't feel quite as good, except for the nail gun. I feel like a nail gun in any game always feels great, where you're shooting just like these huge kind of chunky bullets. So that part of it was really solid. But the other guns, like there's not a lot of them, and they all kind of feel mostly the same. So I wasn't like super impressed by it, but I think it adds to the variety of the game pretty well in terms of like the game difficulty as well. And like ammo is a really scarce commodity in that game, so you can't really just spam it either, even though it makes the gameplay a lot easier because you're not at risk by getting hit by enemies as much naturally. But yeah, I had a great time. I played through the rest of this game. I'm completed now. And, some of the biomes or areas you go in the second half of the game weren't quite as engaging to me as the first half, but I still I had a great time with this game start to finish. It was super fun. The physics like never got old of just ripping zombies up and smashing their ankles out, and just all the ragdoll mechanics were super, super satisfying. And I think maybe the biggest compliment I can give to this game is that like I beat it and I didn't uninstall it. Like I still want to go back and do a little bit more, or I think it's one of those games that like every couple months I'll just get the itch of like, I just could really go for some Dead Island right now. So it'll definitely sit on the hard drive, and I'll keep playing it, keep doing more side quests and explore areas I didn't discover yet. So once again, big shout out to Dead Island 2. If you want to go hear me talk about it more, go back a couple weeks. It's in the episode title. But yeah, it's on Game Pass once again. So yeah, highly recommend Dead Island 2. Just a super fun kind of popcorn flick sort of game. Just kind of a mindless experience, but really, really fun. And yeah, so that was Dead Island 2. I've been getting back into a couple games that, Baldur's Gate 3 and Metal Gear Solid 2 are two games I was working through, and then I just didn't play for like many weeks. So I've been getting back into those. I was talking about Metal Gear Solid 2 with Travis, not you on that episode. Not loving the game as much as the first one, as I praised that game when I on an episode with you. But getting back into both of those. And then really the biggest new game I wanted to shout out today is this game called Minami Lane. It came out recently. It came out like a couple weeks ago, I think. It's like $5 on Steam. I don't know if it's anywhere else. Spell Minami Lane. And essentially this is like a cozy, small-scale city builder, but as the name suggests, instead of designing a whole city, you're just designing one street. You're just building out one street. Beautiful graphics, such a cute game. The music's really pleasant and nice. It's a very quirky, silly game, very goofy in terms of like the characters and the way they walk around. But yeah, it's pretty simple. You just have this one street, and you're just building like individual buildings, and then you're changing the prices and customization and whatnot. And that's like pretty much it. Like it's very simplistic. I 100% of the game in like 4.5 hours of playtime, beat all the levels, did everything in it. And like that's perfect for me. And I love that this game exists because I love city builders and like Civilization and games like that. But goddamn, they are time sinks. Those games.
Oh,
just,
yes.
You re-download it, you play it, and then like your whole weekend's gone. And with where I'm at right now and how much time I have for games and how it's Sidequest, I want to try and bring new games to the show like every week pretty much. Like I just can't play Civ 5 only, even though if my heart is telling me that's all I want to do. And that's where I love that this game exists. Like I can get that city builder fix with a new interesting game, a cute game, but I can just play through the whole thing in like a week, or get like my fix and just do a couple levels, and it only takes me a half an hour to complete one level. So really, really glad that this game exists. It's exactly what I wanted. So to talk a little bit more about it, like it's very simplistic, as I was saying. You're building out your different buildings. You have like different types of citizens. So you have like young people and like old people, and so you're building like either an elder house or like a modern house that brings in like the different types of population. And that's where like a biggest part of like the balancing act comes in, where you might build like a ramen shop or something. And with the ramen shop, the young people and the old people have like different wants and needs for it. So the old people are usually like happier to pay like higher prices. The young people, us millennials, we just want like dirt cheap prices. And then like they might want different things. Like the elders might want like a ton of noodles and like no egg in their ramen, but like the young people want this different stuff. And so you have like this balancing act of trying to like find the right recipe and the right price that's going to work for both of them. Or you can just go beyond and build two separate ramen shops, and which is it's kind of goofy and like almost it's like unrealistic in that way. But like when I got into the last couple levels, that's what I ended up doing for like every building, is I would have two ramen shops literally right next to each other. It's like no city would ever do this. It makes no sense. But one's like only for the young people, one's for the old people, and naturally they kind of just filter to go where they prefer. So you're kind of maintaining these bars. It's a bit easier when you only have that one type of person going into your shops. So yeah, it's kind of janky, but like it works out. Like the last level, I just had like two bookstores next to each other, two ramen shops, two boba shops right next to each other. It's so goofy, but it's fine because once again, it's a small, simple game. Like you don't need to get as into the weeds with the mechanics as like a regular city builder, where you got to worry about like power allocation and like where all these streets are taking people and whatnot. So a lot simpler in that way. A couple like active elements, like you're picking up garbage or like clicking on cute cats that walk by. Like it's very simple stuff like that. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this game. It's like the perfect scale that I want every once in a while. Sometimes, of course, I want a game with deeper mechanics, but this game had like just enough depth to last its playtime. And then like the achievements were fun. Like some of them required you to play in certain ways or try to hit certain goals. And so it was just like a perfect game of like beat it and then like spend an extra hour or two to get all the achievements just because I wanted to, just because I liked having that extra challenge on it. So yeah, highly recommend this game for anyone looking for a nice little cozy game, cheap game once again on Steam. It's, there's a couple quality of life things missing, but like it's a tiny little game. It's very cheap. And once again, a huge flex from this game is that in the credits, it's like a game made by these people in like 6 months. And it's like, why do you got to say that in your credits? Making me feel bad over here as I'm making things. And took me 2.5 years to make this little game. And now these people are here making this amazing game that only took them a few months. It's just such a huge flex. But, yeah, really, really cool game. And like now I have this developer on our radar, and I don't know if their name off the top of my head, but whatever they make next, it's like I'm gonna definitely check it out. It seems like their philosophy is just making like a bunch of small, cute little games, and like I'm all into that. That's 100% my jam.
Looks like Blib Bloop.
There you go. Yeah, no, that's funny. Like in the credits, like their names, it was like programming by Doot.
Yeah.
Art by Bleep Bloop. Like their names are just like that's like their gamer tags, I guess. They just roll with it. It's once again, it fits the goofy tone, lighthearted tone of the game like perfectly.
Oh, that's awesome. I never heard of this, and just unique in the sense of you're literally just creating a lane. Obviously, there's many city builders out there, in many different just aspects to them, but I don't know, something nice and wholesome about like the small scale of it. But
yeah. I don't know if it's a Kirklin game. I just don't know if you've played games quite
like city builders. Yeah, like it's mostly like backed with other gameplay to it. Like obviously like Total War Warhammer. That's like a big one for me, but that's so much less on the actual city building of it. Like you were saying, it's more the strategic side of what type of buildings you're going to need to fund your military campaign, more so than to help out your citizens on like just highways or whatever. I feel like the biggest city builder I've probably played is something like Roller Coaster Tycoon,
Right. Yeah.
which is a whole different city. But there's a lot of strategy to it.
Yeah.
But I haven't played that game since probably I got it out of like a cereal box way back
Yeah.
in the day. So I'm dating myself with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is it's weird one. Like it's an easy one to recommend because it's so easy to get into and it's not a huge
Yeah.
time sink. But then also it's like, well, the mechanics aren't like super deep and it's like a little bit janky around the edges. So I don't know. It's definitely not going to be for everyone. But once again, for like $5, like you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Really nice time with that one. And then the other kind of wholesome, lighthearted game I checked out recently is called A Little to the Left. I don't know if you remember this one, because I think it popped up in a Nintendo Direct. But this came out a couple of years ago, but just dropped on Game Pass the other day, which is why I finally checked it out. I don't know if you remember this one, but it's like essentially like these little puzzles, one after another. And it's a very simple thing where it's like the first few levels are something simple. Like it's really like an organization puzzle game, as I guess how you would describe it. So it starts out very simple. Like the first couple levels might be just like you have a bunch of picture frames and they're all kind of like a little bit wobbly. So you kind of just have to like straighten them out. You do that, boom, you beat the level and you move on to the next one. And then it gets into stuff that's a little bit more interesting, like, and some of them have like multiple solutions too, which is cool, where there's one where there's like 7 keys and you kind of have to arrange them in the right way. And so there's a couple ways you can do it. One is like you just arrange them from like the smallest to like the biggest key, and that's how you could beat the level. Or another way is like what do you call them, like the key, like the teeth on the key, you know, like the little parts at the end. I don't know what the technical term for those are, but
Sounds
it's like,
right.
yeah, it sounds like they look like teeth. Sure, we'll call them teeth. Where there's like each key has like one of them has 1 tooth on it, and then this one has like 2, 3, 4. And it's like, okay, I can arrange them by like how many teeth they have, and that's like an alternate way to beat the level. So I think the more interesting levels are the ones that have these multiple solutions in them. But yeah, it starts out, it's like a lot of things, just like things around the home, but then eventually it's like kind of like plants, into like, you know, the garage, where one of my favorite levels was just you have like a whole toolbox of stuff and you just got to like put the wrench in the right spot. You got to put the level in the right spot. And everything has like its cozy little nook that it like fits into perfectly. So it's a very like therapeutic, chill game. It was like the perfect game that I'd play for 20 minutes before bed until I beat it, kind of thing. So yeah, really cute, really cozy, cute games. What I was trying to say there. I really like the aesthetic of it, and the music is like very nice and peaceful. It's definitely, this is not one like Minami Lane where I want to go back and do 100% of it. Some puzzles, like most of them, when I beat it, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to move on, even if there's like multiple solutions. But then other ones, I'm like, oh, I'm really curious like what these multiple solutions could be. I also think I played this game on Xbox. I think it would be a lot better with a mouse and keyboard, like just clicking and dragging objects around would be a lot better. A little bit hard to get that precise control with the controller, but it worked fairly well in that way. And you know, one thing I liked about this game too is it has like, you just pause and can ask for a hint at any point. And I'd use that quite a bit because like this is a very particular game, and it's like the way they design these levels, it's like, man, they're like, some of the solutions for these puzzles are like, I would never have figured that out. Like the very precise one way they want you to organize this thing that's like very unintuitive. It's like, I don't think I ever would have got that. But you have this nice hint system that is also, it's cute that the hint system has like some character to it, where essentially it's like a little cheat sheet. It's like a piece of paper and it's like all scribbled over. And then you like pick up an eraser and you like erase parts of it. And then you can see like on the level, I guess, where you should put this one thing. So you can kind of erase a little bit of it if you just want like a bit of a hint, or you could just erase the whole thing, or you could keep going back and forth and erase some of it. Maybe you still can't figure it out, go back, erase some more. So it's kind of a cute little hint system that's like integrated into the world in a creative way. Yeah. So once again, another cute, cozy game. Just a simple kind of puzzle design here. That once again, if people want like a nice relaxation kind of game out there, I like that this is like a huge niche of games now. Like not every game needs combat and health bars and stuff. And so I like jumping into these games every once in a while. So that is A Little to the Left. A cute game. Definitely worth checking out. Kirklin, why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going on with Helldivers too?
Yeah, I'll break up your games you've been playing, talk some Helldivers news here. So Helldivers 2, taking the world by storm.
Yes.
I'm absolutely loving that game. I had just a little minor hiatus on it, not for any real big reason, just I guess life got busy, and then jumped back in, and it just seemed so different. More so because I think certain bugs that I was just interacting with just were not there anymore, or getting into games is just a lot cleaner these
Nice.
days, and
Are
it's
the server
very.
issues like completely fixed at this point?
I haven't had any issues
Nice.
of
That's
like
awesome.
waiting to get into the game like I did initially, which is fantastic. It's nice, and like it didn't take them that long to fix that. Really, like I think I got the game maybe a week after or 2 weeks after like it actually came out. So within that week, they had patched that, which was nice. So didn't have to worry about just getting into the game. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's something that you do want to fix right away, but they were obviously surprised by the amount of success that they were having on just purchases and everything. So it's a good problem to have, I guess. But yeah, like another thing that I was super confused on was just because it's what is it? Is it a live service game or like community driven game? I
I
guess
guess
more
you would call
so.
it a live service game. It's
Yeah,
weird because it's not free to play, but it still is like a live service game.
and like community driven in the sense of like everybody is working towards this, like the
Yeah.
same goal, and they have these like weekly challenges that I thought were just personal challenges, but it's literally just worldwide, like
Oh,
whoever's
nice.
playing, like
That's
they
cool.
are working towards certain challenges, which is nice because then you get the the rewards even if you're not
Yeah.
necessarily grinding as much as maybe you should be to try and achieve it. But they had one, I forget what the planet was, but it was something to do with liberating um it was either a region of space or just an individual planet, and that was the community goal. And it was kind of a surprise because once that happened, it just they like gifted mechs into the game, like which is just a major gameplay component that just was
Yeah.
not in the game at all. And now it's a whole stratagem that you can just unlock, which is super, super exciting. Now you have to, I think the price on them is like crazy high. I think, I don't know particularly what it is, but you also unlock them at level 25, which I am not level 25
Mm-hmm.
yet. So I do not get to jump into a mech, but I think this is just such a great addition to it because this game is so challenging. It like especially if you're on harder difficulties and if you aren't like really high level where you have really good loadouts or really good stratagems to go with it, or even just like a lot of experience playing the game, like certain yeah, just strategies to in order to defeat these levels. Like this game can be very hard and just punishing, you know, like if you are on a difficulty that maybe you shouldn't be on, it feels that way. Uh but I do love the aspect that this game, I feel like it always has a challenge to it. Like you won't get to a point that you're like, this game's too easy for me. Like if you are leveling up, unlocking more things so that you go up a level, like they really do feel challenging. And that's something that even when I first was playing it, like just a measly level 1 character, like the game felt hard for where I was at there, just because it's so chaotic and there's so many enemies, so many mobs coming at you there. And I just I don't know. I think they do such a great job with that aspect, and to have mechs in the game and you
Mm-hmm.
don't unlock them at level 25. I've seen some clips of what the gameplay is like when you're doing like the super super hard levels, and it is absolutely insane. Like it is like I don't understand how some people defeat these levels. Now I guess it makes sense if they have fantastic loadouts that they can get later on, like some really powerful guns that I was reading through the patch notes. It seems like some people are upset that they've nerfed some of like the go-to main guns, like some of the rail guns. I believe
Right.
got pretty hard nerfed. Not necessarily on their damage, but just how they interact with certain enemies. Like a charger, for example, it's armored in the front, but it's like a weak spot on the back. Apparently, like depending on what angle you shoot it at, like it would have different penetration, but I think it was a bug. It just had 100% penetration no matter where you hit
Oh,
it.
yep.
So it was just like incredibly overpowered in that sense. So they fixed that now, and some people are upset because obviously their go-to strategy just got nerfed. But I think it's better for the overall health of the game when they do fix those things.
Yeah, that just sounds overpowered. That doesn't even sound
Yeah,
like.
no, like
It's not like someone had come up with a cool strategy. It was just like, oh, this
no,
gun was pretty
exactly.
broken.
So for that reason, everybody was using that, and it
Yeah.
kind of got. I mean, it's not a PvP game, but like it's
Yeah,
just
but still, right?
yeah, no, 100%. So there, and when I was doing some digging on a Reddit post about the patch notes, and apparently they've just had like a couple shadow buffs too that like weren't in the patch notes.
Oh,
I don't know
weird.
why they made the decision to do that. I don't know if it's just like an oversight; they didn't realize that it wasn't in the patch notes or something. But something like the resupply, like the way they interact with those, got fixed. Where I don't necessarily know what the issue was before, but it's more so like I think you can only get one resupply at a time, like on whoever is calling in the resupply, and I think you just weren't really getting like, I don't know, like your value out of it. Like you weren't actually getting resupplied. Like, you know, it might have been a bug. Something along those lines got fixed, but it was like a shadow buff. So I don't even know if that actually was changed.
That man, I remember that a lot happening in Smash Ultimate for two reasons.
Yeah.
One, because there were some times where like a change seemed to have happened, and people are like, "This was not in the patch notes." But then it's like becomes this thing of like, am I crazy? Like, was it always this way? Or like, is someone like there would always be people who would not update their games so that they could like test these things versus
compare it. Yeah.
But then it was also like Nintendo's patch notes are so bad that it's like changed Lucas's aerial attacks, and it's like, what does that mean? Did you improve one of them? Did you change the damage, the knockback? Like, there's all these things it could be, and they just had like so little detail on a lot of those things. So, yeah, that's funny when things just slip through the cracks, but then it being like a big deal, or at least something that's like relevant. Like even Marvel Snap has had a couple things where a change happened that like wasn't in the patch notes for some reason, and usually it was just an accident, and then they undid it like a couple days later. But yeah.
It always blows my mind when people are like that dedicated to like, we're gonna figure out like something feels different, and then they compare it with like an older version of the game, and they find out like, man, that's dedication right there. Continuing on with the patch updates, one of the game modes, or I guess just mission type, it was an eradication mission. They changed them slightly, so they require more kills, which is a fantastic idea because those missions are like some of the most fun because you just drop in and it's literally just like kill 100 enemies, and it would go by like so fast in the past. So then your mission's over like really, really quickly. But those were really like satisfying ones to do because it's literally just you're killing enemies. You don't have to do too much else other than that. So I don't know how much more like required kills there are, but it's pretty significant now. Like those missions, they feel a lot longer, which is I think a positive just change overall. And another big change is Now, I'm kind of confused on this change because it says that they have planetary hazards like now, but they always kind of had them. Like if you went to a planet that was ice, for example, like you would just be a little bit slower or something. Like it might have just been a very minor inconvenience, more so than a hazard. But now they have bigger hazards. I haven't interacted with all of them yet, but some of the changes, for example, is if there's like a storm going on in on your planet that you're on, like you'll actually interfere like with your communication systems. So stratagems, which I've explained in the past, but if you don't know, like it's basically a button sequence that you do. Up, down, left, right might be an airstrike, you know, up, down, like whatever it might be differently to get like a resupply, for example. If you're in like a storm like that that's interacting with your communications, if you do a certain sequence, it would be a completely different stratagem. Like every time it would be like if I'm trying to call an airstrike but it does a resupply, like it would do that every time. It's not like it's entirely random, so you could kind of memorize which one is which, I guess, going forward from there. And then later on you could like in the mission itself you could, like, I don't know, fix the communications array, for example, to fix that issue. But it's just like another factor to introduce to the game, which again, like I was saying, like this game is very challenging sometimes. So to have that aspect to it, you know, you think you're calling a resupply and you just like airstrike your entire your entire team. Friendly fire is very much a thing in this game, so you can definitely wipe out your whole squad multiple times if you're not paying attention to that. But I don't know, I just think it's a cool thing to introduce to the game for gameplay mechanics wise, just because it is such a dangerous game, it's such a dangerous world, and to add those extra factors. Personally, I don't need the extra challenge, but I know if I, you know, keep leveling up and get to the point that my character's super buffed up, I don't know, I just think it's a welcome change because they do a great job at just having these threat levels really feel just important.
Nice.
So yeah, I like the changes overall. Of course, there's like a whole patch notes of other minor bug fixes in here there I won't go into, but yeah, Helldivers 2. I think this game is utterly fantastic, and I'm sure I'll keep reporting it on future episodes I'm a part of.
Was there a narrative or a story reason for the mechs jumping into the fray?
Well, like I said, like it was a community challenge to liberate Tien Kien or something like that is what it was called. And for story reason, not so much. It's more so just like adding to the arsenal of Super Earth. But yeah, I don't think so from my knowledge at least.
Mm-hmm.
It fits the
cool,
world
though,
though.
yeah.
Like the aesthetic of it, like it really works actually, especially when you're fighting against these giant bugs. Like why wouldn't you just have a giant
Yeah.
mech if you're coming from Super Earth? It's like, you're fighting for democracy.
Yeah. No, that seems like a good incentive to keep leveling up. Like how many hours do you think it would take to hit level 25?
To hit level 25, that would be quite the grind. I
Really?
think like
Okay.
I'm like level 10-ish, and I think I have like 8 hours plus in the
Okay.
game.
So maybe 25 hours ish to get to level
yeah,
25.
yeah,
an hour,
maybe.
hour
And
per level.
I will say like a lot of those hours are probably just from like the early days, just waiting to get in. Because like
That's
I would
true,
literally
yeah.
just boot up the game and then I'd walk away
lot
for
more
like an
efficient
hour
now,
and
yeah.
hopefully get in. So those numbers are a little bit skewed there, but
Gotcha.
I mean, like there is like the big community challenges, and if you do like complete those, or I guess if the community completes those, like you do get major rewards there. So it kind of depends what you're doing. Obviously the harder the difficulty, the more XP you'd be getting. So you can definitely min-max, I think, your leveling up, and other strategies that I'm sure
Yeah.
people use to really min-max their upgrades there. But yeah,
Mhm.
it I think it's warranted as well. Like it should feel like an achievement to
Oh,
get
yeah.
up to that point, to
Definitely.
get these giant mechs, because they do seem very, very strong.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially in a PvE game, it's not like it's overpowered for other people to
Yep.
have mechs and you not to. You just gotta
Yeah,
You just
exactly.
gotta work hard to get there. But yeah, also if anyone listening wants to team up with anyone in our Discord server,
Yeah.
there's some people over in the video games channel teaming up to play some Helldivers 2 together. So if anyone else listening needs some people to party up with, go no further than our Discord. You can either just ask in there or, let me know and I'll ping you, whoever the people were. And track you down some teammates there to go jump and fight against
Yeah.
these beasts and androids and whatnot, whatever you're fighting there.
The automatons.
Automaton, sorry, yeah. Cool. There you go. There's your Helldivers update. And yeah, just two kind of last shout outs here for me. One is for the last like month or so, I've been jumping around in Hades. I've been playing some Hades at long
Ooh.
last, which is a long time coming. This was a game that I feel like it kind of came out of nowhere when it hit big in 2020. And the reason I didn't play it, even though it's like a roguelike, like it should be right up my alley, is because like it was either the week before or the week after it came out was the release of Spelunky 2. So as soon as Spelunky 2 came out, I didn't care about anything else. That's all I played. Like by like February, I think, because PlayStation had like their yearly recap or something. Spelunky came out in September, and I had like 400 hours by the end of that year. Like I played nothing but Spelunky, and I wish that Sidequest was around when Spelunky 2 was out, because. But I also maybe not, because that's all I would have talked about for like 4 months, so I wouldn't have had a whole lot interesting to say, whereas now I can bring in a lot of new games. But anyway, I love Spelunky 2. This is not a Spelunky 2 episode, but the reason I didn't play Hades is because it came out so close to Spelunky, and it's another roguelike, and I was plenty busy with that one, so I didn't need to check it out. But it definitely felt like a game I was missing out on. It was winning all these Game of the Year awards. It's a genre that I really like. And I think finally with Hades 2 being on the horizon, I think it's going into early access this year or it's coming out this year, one or the other. It felt like, okay, I should probably jump in there and make sure I've played Hades before the second one comes out, so I can be ready and be part of that conversation when that game comes out. But I think beyond it's just its release date, I don't know. When I watched Hades trailers, like the art style, not necessarily my cup of tea, and also like the combat didn't seem like something I would necessarily be into. And I think, unfortunately, after playing it for a few hours, I can kind of confirm that, yeah, I don't think this game's really actually for me at all. Like, there's something about the gameplay here that is just kind of hack and slash and mindless, and the enemy types are a bit too samey. And, it is a roguelike, so obviously if you're dying and you're replaying the same earlier levels over and over again, like they never really feel that interesting. Like the level design and the way you're navigating these maps, it's like it's not really in the way you're navigating like a Binding of Isaac, and it's not a platformer like Spelunky, right? So it's kind of just a room based. You're going into a room, you fight some enemies, you go into the next room, fight some enemies. Like it's pretty linear in that way. So there isn't some part of like discovering the level or finding secrets. It's really just do the combat, go on to the next place. So unfortunately, I just don't love the management gameplay. I don't love the hack and slash part of it. And, there is different weapons you're unlocking. I've tried like 4 or 5 of them now. and none of them, like, they all have their own unique part to it. And so I like when I unlock a new one, I try it out. It's like fun for a run, but then like kind of loses its luster pretty quick on me, unfortunately. And so then the other part about this game that I've heard people praise so much is like the story, the characters, and getting to know these characters is really great. And like they seem decent so far, like they seem fun, they seem cool enough, but none of them are really blowing me away now. So I wonder if that's something that really gets better later on. I feel like one thing I've been Googling a lot lately is, does blank game get better later on? Like there's so many games where I've been like playing them and I'm like not vibing with it the first couple hours. I'm like, okay, does this game get better, or should I just go do something else that I enjoy more? Like I did that with Metal Gear Solid 2. I'm like, please tell me this game gets better in the second half. And I did a similar Google with Hades. And it seems like, yeah, like the story and the characters, you get to know them better, and that's cool. But it seems like the gameplay doesn't really improve much. Like for a lot of people that's fine because they like the combat as is, but I really don't. Like there's not enough variety for me. It's a little hack and slashy. The enemy variety is not really that great. It's a bit too linear and all that. So unfortunately, I hate to say, but I just don't think this game's for me. It's not my kind of roguelike. I think maybe I'm more into more hardcore roguelikes rather than rogue. This is more of a roguelite where you're like kind of improving your character run to run and you're getting stronger over time rather than just like a new run from scratch kind of thing. And I don't know, there is some in that kind of subgenre that I do enjoy, but I think the grind part of this of like, oh yeah, I guess I'll just get strong enough eventually because I'll level up so much that the earlier areas become pretty easy is just not quite as engaging to me because the variety there is not really that great. So I hate to say, but I don't think I'm going to really play this game anymore. And therefore, I probably won't check out Hades 2 because I don't really have an interest unless they greatly change the combat of it. I just don't think it's for me. So I don't know. I don't know why I feel bad about that, but I do because I just feel like a lot of people, it's their favorite game ever, their favorite indie game of the last 5 years, and I want to support indies as much as I can, roguelikes, but I just don't think I can be there for this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a game again, just because it has been so popular and so well received, and like I've had many friends play it and just say it's amazing too, and I wouldn't say I was like standoffish because of what I had seen. It's more just so like, oh yeah, no, maybe one day I'll try that out. But yeah, I'm curious how I would feel on it as well, just because it is, I don't know, it's different gameplay wise than some other roguelikes that I have seen, and yeah, I don't know, just curious because I think you're actually the first person that has been like negative on it.
Yeah,
so
I've not heard
kind of
anyone
surprising.
not like it until I was like looking up on Reddit and stuff. But yeah, never on like any podcasts or anything.
Yeah.
I guess probably because people love the game so much that people didn't want to like get hate if they like said they didn't like it or something. But I think the dust has settled enough or enough away from that game coming out that I don't think people will care anymore if I don't like the game. But yeah, I don't know. It is weird to be on an island with it, but that does happen from time to time. I don't know. I've just played so many games in my life that I feel like I need something special or different to grab me, and I don't know, this game just doesn't have the sauce for whatever reason, so it's too bad. That's the way it is. Anyway, and then the last, it's kind of 2-in-1 shout out here. The last thing I'll shout out for the day is Kirklin, can you believe it? I have not one, but 2 Solitaire-based games that I've been playing that I want to talk about here. So
I saw that on the list, and I'm like, where is he going with the solitaire-ness?
Where am I going with Solitaire? So it's not like Microsoft Solitaire or whatever comes pre-built in your computer. It's just 2 different games that are based off Solitaire as a concept, which I'm realizing like, what even is Solitaire? Because I know the Solitaire that you play on a computer or like you'd play with a deck of cards, and I played camping growing up. But it's like, I don't know what, if you boil it down, is like what actually is Solitaire. Like I think it's just the concept of like a card game where you're putting like cards, like building up like 1, 2, 3, or ace 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up to king. Like I guess that's more like the basic concept of Solitaire, but maybe there's like different versions of it. I don't even know if it's just like here in Canada, this is how we play Solitaire, but like maybe in the US they play it differently, or maybe in Japan Solitaire is like a completely different thing. I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting lost in the weeds here. The reason why I've checked out these 2 games, so the 2 games are Pocket Card Jockey, which is a 3DS game, and the other one is called the Solitaire Conspiracy. So the reason I decided to check one of these games out, and then it kind of led me to want to play the other one, is that recently in the Nintendo Direct that me and you briefly talked about, but mostly we just skipped over it because there wasn't much in there. One of the things was announced was Pocket Card Jockey and a subtitle that I can't remember. And so I don't know what that version was exactly, but Pocket Card Jockey was like a really popular 3DS game. And so I think the Switch version that was in that trailer, in that Direct, I should say, is like essentially like a port of that 3DS game to the Switch. I think that's what it is. Maybe it's a bit of a sequel. Maybe it has new content. I'm not too sure. But Pocket Card Jockey was a game that I heard so much praise of. And like there were so many podcasts that, when the 3DS store was going down, that did an episode on like talking about the 3DS. We did that. Me and you talked about the 3DS for an hour and a half, 2 hours, talking about our favorite games on it and whatnot.
Yeah.
And when I listened to everyone else's podcast who did a similar thing, everyone was praising Pocket Card Jockey. And so it was a game it's like $8 or something. So I bought it on the store before the 3DS store closed because I wanted to check it out. And so it was because of that like announcement in the Direct, I was like, I kind of want to, now is maybe the right time to finally go play that game. Because I downloaded it on my 3DS and just never actually booted it up to that point. There's still a couple of 3DS games I bought that I'm kind of waiting for a rainy day. And for whatever reason, it was finally the rainy day for this one. So I checked it out. And then the other one is Solitaire Conspiracy. And that I just have had on my wish list for a long time on Steam, and it went like super, super cheap on a sale. I think it might have been the winter sale, actually. So I bought that, and then it was finally, when I was playing Pocket Card, I'm like, I kind of want to try out Solitaire Conspiracy now, too. So I'll talk about that one in a bit. But yeah, Pocket Card Jockey is a very weird Nintendo game. It's made by Game Freak, so it's made by like the people that make Pokemon. And every once in a while, they make a game that's not Pokemon, and they no one cares about those games, or no one knows about those games. But they do happen every once in a while. And so yeah, this game is like, as the name would suggest, jockey. Like you're riding a horse, you're doing horse racing, and then like the gameplay mechanism of which that comes across is through like these little games of solitaire. So it starts out and you have like a little solitaire puzzle, and it's not in the same solitaire that you or me are like used to, but kind of similar thing. If you're just picking cards that are close to each other in number, and you're kind of trying to knock them all off the list, that kind of thing. So it starts out with that, and then throughout the race, you're like planning the positioning of where your horse is going with like the 3DS stylus. You're like moving that along a line. Like maybe you want to go right behind someone to try and reduce drag, or maybe you want to just go to this other spot. Different horses have different boosts, whatever, of where they're most efficient. And then you're once again doing like multiple solitaire games throughout this and the better you do solitaire, the more energy your horse gets, the faster your horse moves. It's pretty simple in that way. You're just doing horse races, making money, going to tournaments, that kind of thing. That's like the general conceit of it. But then like the story surrounding it is like really weird. Like the start of the game, your character like dies. They get hit in the head by a horse's back, like hind legs, and they like die. And then they like get brought back to life, and then they have to compete in these horse races to like make money. I don't really get what's going on. There's like a Grim Reaper kind of guy early on in the game that brings you back to life. So a very weird game with a very weird setup. The dialogue is really strange. The jokes are really bizarre, like just not even like dad jokes, but like somewhere in that ballpark. So it's a very bizarre game. It's a way more dialogue than you would expect as well. Like gets to a point where I'm like, come on, like let's get through this cutscene here because I just want to like play the game some more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird game, and I don't. Once again, this is another one where I Googled and I'm like, does this get better later on? Because like early on, it's like it's all right, but like I'm just shocked that people say this is like one of the best 3DS games, and I think part of that might be that like the 3DS just like maybe didn't have the best roster of games overall when you look at like the console lifespan. But yeah, when I've heard people like praise this game, I'm kind of surprised to see that based on how much I'm enjoying it. But then I think part of that is that I'm also at the same time playing Solitaire Conspiracy, and I'm liking that a whole lot more. So maybe that's just part of it too. It's just comparatively two solitaire type of games, and one of them is like way better than the other one. So I might still go in and like just do a race every once in a while in this game, but it's not incredibly engaging for me, unfortunately. So that's Pocket Card Jockey. The second solitaire game is, once again, Solitaire Conspiracy. So the reason this one is on my radar is the developer here is Bithell Games, which is led by Mike Bithell, and he's an indie game developer out of the UK, I believe. He's on a podcast I really enjoy, Play Watch List, and I really like his takes on games. And so because of that, I've always had a appreciation for his games, and I want to go check them out when I can. And I've talked about a lot of those on Sidequest here. The first one was called Thomas Was Alone. That was the studio's first game. It was like a platformer game, which was cool. I really liked that. And the other one they made was John Wick Hex, which I talked about last year when they were doing the John Wick retrospective. I did like a short Sidequest episode talking about playing through John Wick Hex. They also had that what was it, that Tron game, Tron Identity, that came out last year, I think, or maybe it was 2 years ago now. So they every once in a while they have like these kind of licensed games, but yeah, Solitaire Conspiracy is like an original one here, and essentially the setup of this one is it's more like Solitaire that I'm used to, but I guess the rather you don't really have like a deck that you're drawing from. So like all the cards are put on screen at the same time, and there's 8 piles of these cards, and then you have like your 4 slots in the middle to put your like start with your ace and then build up 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And so it's kind of about like organizing those 8 stacks rather than like drawing new cards to like make those stacks, if that makes sense. But then like I guess like the hook on top of this is that the face cards, the Jack, the Queen, and the King, they'll have certain abilities so depending on which like faction they are. So rather than like clubs or spades, it's like these certain factions, based around the story in the world, and they all have like certain abilities. So if I put the Jack of like this certain suit on top of another one, it'll send that next card to that stack. So even if that 2 is way at the bottom of one stack, I can immediately like send it there. And so it's kind of set up like the conspiracy part is like it's the whole like sleeper cell, like spy agency sort of thing. And so each of them have like these are like the drive away guys, or like these are like the sleeper cell, like whatever, like all of these things.
That's cool.
Which, yeah, the story part of it is so funny to me because it's like you're playing Solitaire. It's like this goofy little card game, but then like the story is like so serious and about like this evil mastermind. And another funny detail about this is like it's called Solitaire Conspiracy for 2 reasons. One, you're playing Solitaire, and conspiracy, it's like a spy thing. But then like the villain in the game, his name is his name is Solitaire, and so you're like trying to hunt down Solitaire. So you're playing Solitaire to take down Solitaire. Which is funny because John Wick Hex, that game is called that because the villain of that game is called Hex. So I like that for whatever reason, this studio, 2 games, not back to back, but 2 of their games, the name of the game is based off the villain, which like I can't think of many games that are named after the villain. Normally like the name of the main character, the protagonist would be in the title, right? So that's kind of an interesting twist on the formula there. But yeah, they like doing that for whatever reason. But yeah, I don't know. I really like this Solitaire. Like the actual gameplay is really fun, especially once you finally get up to 4 suits. It gets like really intense. Like they lead you in there where you just have 1 to 2 suits that you're doing, so that's a lot more simple. But then eventually it gets like really chaotic, and it becomes like a puzzle game, and you're like making your way through a puzzle, and then I'm like, oh, I kind of hit a wall here where you only have like a certain amount of moves to get to the win condition. So I end up like resetting and like trying different ways, and so it becomes like a really fun puzzle game on top of like the regular Solitaire kind of format with it. But then yeah, like the variety of like these different classes or suits, whatever, adds like a nice mix onto it as well. So yeah, I really recommend this one. I think it's a really good time, and the story of it, like a lot of it is text based, but then you also do have like FMV footage of these actors who are kind of explaining it to you. They're like, oh, welcome to the organization, here's what you're gonna do. And a lot of these people are like from podcasts that I listen to, like they're like influencer level people, so it's kind of weird to see them in this game. It kind of takes you out of it a little bit because I specifically know these people, but like they're doing a good job even though they're not like actors normally. Like you got Greg Miller in there and Alana Pierce and these people that I like listening to their podcasts, so it's cool to see them in this game. But yeah, I really like this one. Out of the 2 Solitaire games, this is definitely the winner for me. Solitaire Conspiracy. Really nice aesthetic, really nice menus and whatnot. Like even in John Wick Hex, like the studio has a really good sense of UI. It's like minimalist, really informative and really condensed, but also kind of like different than what you're used to. So it gives it like its whole kind of, it has its own aesthetic and feel to it, which is cool. So yeah, there you go. There's two Solitaire games. Who would have thought in the year 2024 we'd be talking about amazing. Solitaire?
I love that aspect to it because especially just keeping on the simplicity of what Solitaire is, but having this whole interesting, like you said, serious story to it. And I'm so curious, like what that inspiration really came from. Like, were they playing Solitaire and just like in the moment they're thinking about these sleeper cell cards that could be interacting with other cards or whatever, like just what that came from and why make it Solitaire over just, I mean, obviously the villain's name is Solitaire, but I'm sure that came out much after the fact, when they're already working on the gameplay. But what a cool idea, and like you said, just to be talking about Solitaire in in this year. I feel like everybody, well, probably not these days, but growing up, a lot of people had played Solitaire, and every once in a while, like, I like to play a little Solitaire game, and
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was this subgenre of Solitaire games. Clearly,
Yeah,
there's
no,
two that you mentioned.
I mean, the thing is, like, Solitaire, like, you play on your computer or like, with a deck of cards that I know, it's like, it's not a well-designed game, Like, you just kind of
Yeah.
do it to pass the time, right? Like, oftentimes,
Yeah.
you just can't win because of
Yeah.
the luck of the draw. And, like, that kind of sucks. And so I like that video games that I've played that take that idea, that general concept of Solitaire, but, like, actually turn it into good game mechanics. It's like it's just solid because one, it's like very readable. Everyone knows how like a deck of cards is and works, and so just add to have that as your baseline and to build off of it. It's really cool. Another one I played was called I think it's called Flip Flop Solitaire. That's like a mobile game. Like I played on my phone, and that's like really cool, really interesting take on Solitaire as a concept. So I like that. There's other games that have taken what is like a simple card game and turned it into actually like a fun video game. But yeah, I wonder why they chose Solitaire. Like where the story and like the Solitaire part of it like somehow meshed into one. It's kind of weird, but I'm really liking going through checking out these games from Bithell Games. Like I think one is just like the UK based team, like they've maybe a different outlook on games, like a slightly different view. But then like John Wick Hex was like a really interesting take on a tactics game, and this is like a really interesting take on a solitaire game. So it makes me more curious to go on check out more of this studio's games. Like I think Thomas Was Alone was a bit more of a straightforward platformer. I guess the aesthetic of it was something that was unique in the story, but in terms of like the gameplay, it was pretty generic in that way. Whereas these ones are like much bolder takes on like genres that I've seen done before, right? So makes me want to go check out some of their other stuff as well. Yeah. So there you go. There's the Solitaire Conspiracy and Pocket Card Jockey. And I'm glad I got to talk about all these random games today with you, Kirkland, because like I said, next week, Outlast Trials, the week after that, going to be centered on Princess Peach. So like I don't know next time I'll really have time to talk about some of these random little games I've been playing. So it's good to kind of let it all out here, and that gives me a few more weeks to play some other hopefully interesting things and then bring them to the show as well. So this was a fun episode. And yeah, once again, everyone go wishlist Potion Problem on Steam.
Hell
I appreciate
yeah.
that. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.